Well, for the beginning, those of you who are following yesterday's or my introduction, I ended it rather abruptly because I had a look at the time, and then Mr. Paulus was catching his flight. So I just wanted to go back to this last two slides as an introduction for our discussion. So we, in a way, it's been two very interesting days and lots of information, lots of presentations, and then kind of very contradictory situations across Europe, apparently in the common market, under same European directives. And then you see a whole horizon of very various situations in a way. We all agree in a way that architectural services should be on the quality market and not on the lowest bid market, right? That's one. So how should we determine the value of our work? We've seen many, several examples, and of course, what does our work consist of in terms, we feel we know, but in terms when we need to explain from the dish menu, as me won't say. So if I go to this Charles and Ames diagram where they describe it, so the part in the red circle is transcribed there. So where is, let's say, for a very banal beginning, in financial terms, the area of overlapping interest and concern of architect, client, and society, especially if you consider, and that's what's written in these other small scribbles, that it's the areas are not static, they are dynamic, and there could be more clients, and there is also, in addition to architect, client, and society, there are also other collaborators, and the process is quite complex. So what's the fair value in a way? So price is what you pay, and value is what you get. How we define one and how we define the other? I'll close this down. This is just for sort of thoughts for this discussion, and then I'll go, let's say, with the first question, value. Value has different aspects. So, let me name four, and there are more. So there is design value, the one that we see from the paper or from the idea or from. Sorry? Oh, okay. Sorry. Then there is also, let's say, design development value, or the value that we do through design. In theory, you could have very banal building, but very properly, all the drawings, details, cost specification, everything delivered in time, everything perfectly organized, but it's not necessarily architectural value, right? Then there is client's value or end consumer value in terms of energy efficiency, emotion, psychology, or feeling good, temper, like all the things that we know. And then there's also value for the society or the urban culture, for the city, for public, for Baukultur in the widest sense. So, what do you think? How to measure this? How to quantify this? I mean, we've seen who was talking about benchmarking as well. So how? You can imagine any particular project having more or less of each of these, plus all the other things, or none in one specific aspect. We somehow think that this, in our profession, if you win competition prizes, awards, public acclaim, projects are published, then the value is somehow self-evident. You are a distinguished architectural office anyway. So how do you see really incorporating the values do you think that models that we have seen and are a little bit, let's say, robust, resistant, do they account for this? Who will go first? Frank.
Is this on? Yeah. I don't think you can measure value or quality in the fee model, because we don't want to get the lowest price in first range or some things. We'd like to separate quality and price. So we can't mix it up, I think. And I'm not sure how to describe it in the end. I think you tried to describe it with this complexity a bit, but I'm not sure if this will lead to a proper situation in the end. So I think there should be a competition, like a quality competition among the tenders, and the price competition. So it should be divided, and the best competitor has to be chosen in the end. In an ideal world, I know, but I think that must be our position as a chamber, as a relevance for our members, I think.
Your question is a good point, because that's why we in Slovakia have been not able to decide which way to go, because we have this old Unica model that is used globally, and we really are analyzing all these approaches, and we're not able to decide how to evaluate best the services of architects. What aspects have to be in the model to be recognized also by the client as the new version? Because our Unica is so interesting for the client because he gets full services for a few %. So really we have to come with something that we can convince our clients that that is used in Europe, and this is the best that you gives value for your money. So therefore we are still hesitating but therefore I learned a lot from the colleagues, and it will help. I think it will be very helpful for Slovakia. Thank you.
So if I can answer to Frank first, the complexity was meant the complexity of the task before it's begun. So about the value, I think the problem is that our clients who are not public procurers only learn about the value after the whole process is done, and usually it's only once in a lifetime projects if they are private clients. But we had in Slovenia, we have a lot of architectural competitions now, last 10 years maybe. And just this year we had kind of a retrospective exhibition about the competitions in last 20 years, I think. And we made a survey among the clients, which were ministries and municipalities and so on. And we asked them about how they feel with the competition. Would they, if the main question was, would you make a competition even if you didn't have to? And the answer was yes, and that was a value, I think.
Matthias, you were...
Yes, okay, thank you. I mean, one thing with all kinds of fee regulations is a visible problem. There is no regulation about quality. there's no regulation which says, okay, a good architect gets more money than a bad architect. So the idea is always all architects are the same, but that's not true. So we have a problem, because if we say all are the same and they are not, then something has to happen, and it happens. And it happens, what happens, we call it market. That means there are architects which have a higher value because they are producing architecture which is recognized as to be better than the architecture of others. To be honest, it's not only the result in the end, the building, but also the process. And you know, one of those, no, in the beginning was about trust. And I mean, trust is a very high value in our profession. And we do not have any calculation about trust factor or something like that. So, and all of this means, and that's also with HOI, it's an orientation. It's not a perfect and undoubtable description. It has to do sometimes if you go to court or something like that. But indeed, the value is always a market value. And happily, we had the last 10 years were wonderful for our profession, financially too. It was good years. But I'm not sure if that's going on like this, because we have all these troubles everyone knows. And this will have an impact on the market and in the end also on the fees, with regulation or without.
Well, may I?
Of course.
I think that what Damien said in the beginning about trust is important here, because value is much more complex than costs, and is complex because of its intangible dimensions. And one of the reasons the procurers end up going after models that are based cost, it's because that is completely tangible. So I think we should work on rebuilding the trust, and that is done with more information, more transparency, and then that way maybe we can put our value on a higher level.
Thanks. Well, you come from various countries, various, let's say, professional and social environments, business cultures, variety of backgrounds, small, larger practices. On the other hand, we are talking about European Union as a common market. And then we see this spread of unbelievable situations from Portuguese scale, basically from 1972, so 50 years old, to UNICA situation in Slovakia, where one private person published something, and somehow, because there was nothing else, this became semi-official or unofficial fee scales, to Austrian and German situation, where you still have, and Slovenian as well now, and Romanian, where you still have fee scales, or older ones or updated new ones, which through a lot of work and negotiation and process still work in a way, regardless of the judging of the European court, right? So I ask myself, and you as well, how is this possible? Can we all somehow benefit from it? Can there be one directive about the European scope of service standards for architects and fees, so that we could all somehow, use it? I don't know. Those of you who have if you can share a few thoughts on this. Those of you who have the fee scales at the moment, how do you feel confident that this will go on? What is the climate in your countries? I mean,
I doubt that we might have an all-European solution. Because the basis of all these regulations is trust, as we've found out. And I think people tend to trust more to the systems which had been developed in their own country over decades. And they, including me, will not trust so much into something which comes from Brussels authority or something like that. So there's always something difficult. And if it's not accepted in the market, then it's useless. Only what is accepted in the market, and the market is not, of course, not only the architects, but also the engineers and also the clients, most of all. Because the trust among those groups, that is important to have something which is accepted, and even if it's no more legally necessary, is still in work.
I'm more concerned about these extremes and how to. Yeah, Alex, please.
I would like to jump in here, because I think Herr Pfeiffer is quite right, and I think that there will never be a reasonable output in trying to have one universal system. But I think what we can strive for, and would be, in my opinion, my personal experience at least, would be extremely helpful to help us work with each other and learn from each other and share experiences, would be to have a universal translator between the systems. So that ACE, for instance, or whatever entity in Brussels, for that matter, would pick up the task to put Hawaii, HIA, our cost information system, the Slovenian one, and so on and so forth, UNICA and everything else, and try to put them next to each other and define the way to transition from one to the other, so that I can share my experience with a Croatian colleague and with a Portuguese colleague and so on and so forth directly, without having to relearn every time, every system. It's already there. We can share that experience and make it available for all, because the systems are basically available in our profession. So this is, I think, the step that a central entity could undertake, and not be an absurd task like trying to impose one-size-fits-all system for everyone. We are missing in this very honorable round, we are missing our colleagues from the northern countries, for instance, who have a very different approach to this. So I think the task will be even more of a challenge to try to unify everything. So I fully agree with Herr Pfeiffer on this. But I think this translation, this bringing together the systems, would help everyone to take what is best from every system and try to improve their own as well.
But I wasn't really even thinking about unifying. I was just saying maybe helping smaller countries, or countries where profession does not have such, in a way, stability in this sense, and that we could actually use it as a common guidelines in a way, and then this variety from Portugal to, it's unbelievable in a way.
Yeah, but if you have all these systems available in the same spot, in the same language, accessible, then whatever small country you're referring to can just look at it and say, okay, this suits my needs, my legislation, my judicial context best, and this is what I would like to adhere to. I would like to be like the German system or the Portuguese system or whatever. But this would make it available for everyone, so that you don't have to do all the work from zero again.
Frank, Carla, and one of those.
I think the important thing to implement, like any of the rules, is the market acceptance. And the market acceptance on a local point of view can only be done by you and you and you and you in his surrounding or in your surrounding. But the other question is, for me, what is the market? Is it only Slovenia for you, or is it Europe? In a European way of thinking, it should be Europe. Yeah? And then it could help like a transition table or a translator, or a unification, I don't know, or a common sense about it. Yeah? Maybe it would help to not have to argue about the basis. Is it hourly wage, or is it construction costs, or is it something, what's the value in general, what is calculable, and I don't know. But yeah, what is the market is my question, my next question.
But from what I remember from Hawaii court case, this is really what actually got the Hawaii in trouble, or that was the last line of defense, that architects established in Germany, practicing in Germany, could or should or need to apply Hawaii for the projects in Germany, right? One step after the other, the commission was fighting this situation of German office and European market in a way, and then
Can I
of course,
yeah, because what Frank is saying, it's true. The market, it's not only local, it's global. So what Alex talked about having all this information available in one language, and to be possible to understand everything we have available and how it works is very important. But at local level, it's not only how we calculate our fees, because if you are talking about a private client, of course, you offer your fees. But if you are talking about a public procurer, it's different, because he tells you how much he is willing to pay for your work. So there's in that sense, these models don't work, because if it is not accepted by them, then will never be a standard, then it will never translate into your fees. It is okay for the private client, but not for the public procurer. And what happens is the private client always goes behind after what the public procurer is doing. So it is not that simple. It isn't. And so only if you add up information and you make it possible for the public procurer to be aware of that value, you will end up with better fees.
Anyone from the audience, or should I? Yeah, please.
Yeah, how do you compare, actually, as wait, half of the mic. Thank you. Now I'd like to ask you, how do you compare services, I mean fees of services, if you're bidding, no matter if you're doing with a private or with a public client in a procurement? How does that comparison work?
I'm sorry, compared to what?
Among to the client. For instance, let me just say I'm in the role of a client, and I receive God knows how many bids from various architects. And what is the main focus in your area for decision? Thank you.
Well, if I understand the question correctly, I think it comes out of the fact that as long as, let's say, competing offices, competing architects don't address the services by the same names, by the same descriptions, then the client has no chance to compare it. You're comparing apples to oranges, obviously. So the first step to make things more transparent, clearer, and break this asymmetrical level of information that, I mean, we know what we're talking about. Even if we as architects use different names for the different services, we still know what we're talking about. But the client doesn't, because he doesn't have that expertise. So the first step to ensure that the client has a good instrument to compare offers is that we all share the same definitions. We all share the same vocabulary. And this is done, obviously, by, at some point, agreeing on a set of definitions. They may not be perfect, but they should be in place, and architects should, to a sufficient degree, use the same approach. I think Damir was showing in the beginning of the conference an adherence level of about 30 to 40% of Croatian architects to a certain list of well, services definitions. It was the same in Romania after we defined those in 2011, and in March of 2013 we made a survey, and we discovered that after 2 years after they were officially published by the chamber, 1/3 of the architects were using them, 1/3 were using them every now and then and partially, and 1/3 were not using them at all. And it takes time, it just takes time, but the sooner you start to get on the common ground, the sooner you will get on a fully common ground and make things trustworthy and reliable for the clients. I hope this was the direction of the question, or did I get it wrong?
Actually, the question was, for instance, I'm going from, I would like to stand from the point of view of where in bidding, private both and public, usually the criteria for decision is the lowest priced here. So, what is the how do you differentiate the normal price from a dumping?
Anyone wants to take this?
Well, let me then rephrase the answer. Now I think I understand what your question is, and I think Mima was just addressing that at the end of her presentation. The thing is that the chamber, if you have the system, so if you define the what the services are, if you define how much work goes into it, if you then know what the average cost is for an architectural office to actually exist, to function for 1 hour, then you know in approximately, so everyone knows, the public customer, the private customer, the architect himself, the competition of the architect, in about where we are situated with the actual costs of the project. Of course, everything that is below that is suicide. For the market, obviously, not only for the guy who's bidding, who's dumping, it's for everybody else also suicide. But other than that, I don't know how you could do it, because we are not allowed to talk about money, about fees, but we can talk about the things that we can measure and not express them in monetary value. And each of us knows that if you're telling me that your hourly fee is 2 euros per hour, I will tell you that's not possible. Yeah. So at some point, it's quite obvious. And the chamber can do that, of course. I mean, that's why you're regulating a profession. If the profession is not regulated, you can only talk about it and nothing will happen.
Maybe just on the free market.
Yeah, obviously.
Cornel and Matthias.
Generally, what we are talking here about are local market equilibria regarding the fees of architects. If you have one, you are happy. You cannot have a global market equilibria regarding architects' fees in Europe for a long time from now. And of course, you can lose such a local market equilibrium because of a first crisis that comes can make this equilibrium. Equilibrium, I mean that I am happy with the price and the client is happy with the price, with the fee. And that's the problem, that you get one, you have a good fee scale, and then comes the European Commission or another crisis, and you lose it. And that's the problem.
Yeah, but I wasn't even talking in the economic terms of equilibrium. I was talking about, you know, the situation that well, somewhere you have 50-year-old and then the P scale in the other kind of semi-legal, and the third one a very robust developed system. You know, this kind of common guideline, can we help each other, and then somehow, and then you have the situation of Romania starting from scratch and looking.
But if both sides are happy with it, it's an equilibrium, and it's no problem on the market. Yeah. Of course, it can be bad for one side, but if they don't complain and they work within it, so.
Yeah. Matthias, you were going to say something.
Yes, I mean, one of the major problems with architectural services and fees is that you have, it's not possible to determine it right. It's simply impossible. It's not like a piece of steel. Yes, you can a piece of steel. You can say it has this weight and some properties. They're really clear. Or this floor here is square meters, kind of wood and whatever. That you can describe properly, but you cannot do that with architectural services. And this brings always this kind of uncertainty. And I think maybe the major point in the regulation is just, at least, to fix a minimum, to understand what is clearly dumping. Clearly dumping. Above that, it might be a low fee. But it's not yet dumping, and then a higher fees and whatever. Yeah. So you can do that, and I'm also not so sure about if too much standardization, even in one country or something, is a good idea. I talk about BIM. Everyone talks about LODs. What LOD do we have in which phase? I do not like that, because I'm completely sure that it is the responsibility of architects and engineers to know in which moment, in which part of their planning they need which accuracy. And you cannot put that in an execution plan and say, okay, in this month you have to do that, and you have to whatever you need. You have always to do what is necessary in the process, which has to be described, of course, with schedules and something, of course. But you need this freedom that is part of our profession to decide things. And that makes it even more unclear. I'm not so happy with this idea of drawings, you know, to say, okay, you have to make this drawing and this and this and this. You have to make the drawings which are necessary to reach your work. That's what is up to you. So, and everything is uncertain in this.
I have one question from through the cell phone directly to you. Like, do you practice outside of Germany, and under what or your office? I mean, and under what conditions would you accept a
we used to do that. We had an office in Poland, and I did a little work in China. So we have little experience, but I would not say that we are really experienced in foreign work.
Great. Thank you. So now let's say from the position of, I don't know, chamber, let's say, or the countries that are still like Cornel and maybe Carla that are dealing, like, we often hear from membership, you know, chamber should do, someone should do. Who does these things in your countries? Is it chamber, association, ministries, agency, institutes, universities? We've seen, Axel was talking about, well, ETH doing this for the CIA, and the Technical University in Graz, Professor Lehner for Austria. I don't know, Alex, who did the work for Romanian chamber, and how much did it cost, in a way? You know, who will do the work for Croatian chamber and Slovak chamber and Portuguese order?
You addressed the question first to Cornel and Carla, but I will jump in most certainly, because I was waiting for this kind of discussion to arise. We always had that, of course. Somebody has to do that, and usually it was pointing at the chamber. The chamber has to. The chamber is not a person. You cannot give it tasks. The chamber can take up challenges or tasks, but then there are people who have to do that. And the chamber is made up of the people, and if I'm looking at the Croatian Chamber of Architects now, I expect that those people who should be doing the job are the ones here in the room. Because that's the only ones I see.
We are in deep trouble then. I mean, no offense to the people in the room.
No, but really, the answer is quite simple. It's the people who rise up to the challenge. The people who say, okay, I will give my personal time, because usually it's not paid for the chamber, not relevantly paid. It's just symbolical payment. And I want to do this work. And I think these people have to also get at least a round of applause at some point in their life, because they are doing this. If you think about it, those people working for the chamber are giving their private extra energy and time to improve their competition. Yeah? To make things better for everyone else who is their competition, basically. Of course, in the end, it helps them as well. This was my drive all the time. Of course, I'm giving my time to improve my competition, but then it will be a lot easier and better for me to work as an architect on the market, because everyone will be at the level where I hope that my professional life will be as well. So the chamber has to do it, yes, but the chamber is made of people who have to engage. And hopefully this will happen also in Croatia. So this conference is a good first step, I would say.
So let me get, if I understood you correctly. Basically, you are saying that from all the work that you did in your chamber in 10-year period, you outsourced some of the research, but most of the work was done by the chamber, the members of the chamber, through their volunteer work.
You cannot outsource a whole project. You can outsource some work, and especially the work that cannot be done internally. So sociological work, economical surveys, all the stuff that we as architects sometimes think that we know how to do, but we don't really know how to do it. Just like we don't want a lawyer to tell us how their house should be planned. We should leave lawyers with their job, and economists with their job, and sociologists and anthropologists and so on. So that everything there has to be outsourced, obviously, and you have to get competent partners to do that, and you have to pay them, because they will not give freely their time for the Chamber of Architects. But the coordination of these projects is obviously done by people from within the chamber, because they know what they want and where they want to take the project. And they should enjoy the support of their colleagues, because they are dedicating their time and energy to do this for the common good of the profession. So there will be, of course, some expenditures. You should get put some money on the side for external work, obviously.
My suggestion yesterday to Raika was that we hire a Romanian translator and then just use what you've done so far, but I think she didn't understand me seriously. Mima, do you want to add, how did you organize and finance the work necessary for the, perhaps?
Yeah, I think this is not something that you can employ. I mean, the person who's going to do it is not going to do it because of the money he earns, that's for sure. And it was quite similar as in Romania. It was not really a paid job, based on probably too few people than it should, but yeah.
Anyone else? But then, oh yeah, please.
I have had the opportunity to work with ACE, to be a delegate for ACE for 8 years, and I started to ask the colleagues from different countries, how it is in your country, how it is in your country, and I gathered a huge amount of information from the colleagues in ACE. And then I realized that there's no information in Slovakia about such possibilities. Zero. Everybody was okay with the situation. So I brought this task to the chamber. I started with some questionnaires by the members of the chamber. And I have the same problem that I have problem to find some members of the chamber to cooperate on this task, because maybe they don't know other foreign languages, for example, and or they are not interested. They are only interested in design work and not interested in some analysis. So I have really same problem that. I have to convince some lawyers to work on the task, because they also told me that it's not according Slovak laws and you shall stop it. But now I have lawyers, I convince the chamber, and hopefully it will start.
To build up a little bit on this question, for example, the BKI is obviously now private or owned by chamber. Like, how do you, in countries where in Austria maybe as well, how do you collect these info? Who takes care of? Because we don't have, for example, in Croatia, we don't have reliable construction cost indicators. In spite of it was huge pioneering work that I showed by Mr. Hanžek, and he did it for years. But especially now with inflation and with everything, like, how do you come up with these, in a way, surveys as well, but something that is important for the state and for all other stakeholders to have continuous monitoring of construction costs, changes, and things like that?
Yes, of course, we have BKI, and BKI is indeed owned by the chambers, but it's not in this sense official source. It is not the source where fees are calculated on. I mean, the construction costs are always under discussion in fee discussions. So we do not have real data in the sense Mima wants them and needs it for her program, and in a way, we do not need it because we discuss about it. It is, yeah. I would prefer maybe another system, as I said, in the end. Then you need this kind of data, because you have to have it then, but we don't have.
But for all of you, then, I mean, we still see different models. Do you think we should give up of the percentage of the construction costs model altogether? I mean, from ours, that the hours model that Mima showed, to ours, which it was somehow from the construction cost to some number of hours. Axel was talking about earlier in some and some Nordic colleagues. They know, like, what's the average rate to design a kindergarten. I don't know, 2 hours per square meters or something like that. I don't know if it's correct or not, but do you think this battle is lost in a way, or I mean, I don't know. It exists somewhere, and in some countries it's not possible anymore. It seems.
Well, I think the construction costs are too much available for manipulations, because we had this we still have this in Slovenia for public procurement, and they always estimate the construction cost half lower than the reality, so that your price is also half lower. Yeah. So. And also because of the market situations, it's too vulnerable. I think we should find something else.
Yeah, I think it's not only that problem Mima is saying, but I don't think it is trustworthy, because people will start saying, but the more you pay, then the more you get. So it's not a very positive way of looking at the value of our work, I think. But the effort Mima was showing here in her presentation about trying to find the number of hours per square meter. I don't know how you said it is a good model, but maybe the number of hours is not correct and it's debatable. But at least it is a time effort model. I think it's more suitable and more trustworthy for general public, probably.
I was thinking about this, going away from a construction cost based model is of course difficult if you are used to it. But the question is, do you actually have trustworthy data, as everyone says? Do you have that? If you don't have that, you cannot really convince somebody that it's a good model. So in principle, in theory, it's a good way of constructing your whole algorithm of fee for your offer. But if the ground, if the foundation of this whole construct is shaky, then your construction will not be better. So from this point of view, if you have reliable statistical data, then you can do that. What Mima was saying, I think, is quite important, very much applicable everywhere where construction costs are negotiated in a bid with a public hand, based, so the procurement rules, so the decision for the procurement is based on the lowest price. They will underbid, all the bidders will underbid each other until one of them wins the final contract. But then, during the process, you either go down on the quality if your price is lower than the actual cost should be, or you somehow negotiate getting the price back up. But this is really not something that is under our, sometimes not even visible for us, not to speak of control of us. So I think, yes, with the exception of the situations where you have very clear information or sufficiently reliable information on the actual costs in the market, you should find something else. And this something else is apparently, right now, in our experience at least, while studying the European models in circulation, is basically to try to define the number of hours needed for a project of a certain type. And then leave the market, leave the architects to battle on the prices within the hourly fee. My hourly fee can be more expensive than yours because of some certain reasons. I don't know, I want to make more money than you, more profit, but also the fact that you don't have to spend that much money on, I don't know, salaries, software, rent, heating, because your office is better equipped than mine. So things can be self-regulating in the end in the market, and that is also something that sounds very, very well to the regulators in Brussels. There is a little bit of the whole construct which is still in the hands of the free market, and it's not in any way controlled by the chamber, by the government, by anyone. And this helps.
Only a short remark. I had yesterday a discussion with Axel Paulus from Switzerland, and he convinced me that if we incorporate the responsibility against our office, against our staff in this fee calculation, then you have no other possibility than calculate the hours you need to pay to your staff. That's his way of thinking about this. So you have not only responsibilities to your client, to the society, but huge responsibilities to pay your staff for all the hours they are working on the project.
Matthias, you were shaking your head
Yeah,
earlier.
yes. I mean, what does it mean? But you have to pre-calculate how many hours you need, and because you have to say it in advance and not afterwards, probably. So you always come to the same point. It's more or less how many euros or whatever currency you get per square meter planning. Not plan, but floor. You can put it all together, and then this is the outcome in the end. And I talked to Marco at the coffee, and we wondered about what is the factor which makes a project successful, financially successful, or unsuccessful? And we said the main thing is the client. And you cannot put a client factor in any regulation and say such a complicated. Yes, you can. We have it even in this point system. We have if it's a client with many branches and whatever. But this single man, which always is the trouble Tom, the whole project through, you have no chance to put this into a calculation. So the calculations cannot be exact, but they do not have to. They have only to be such an indication, I would say. It's an indication, and you see clearly when you are far below, and that should not happen. You see clearly you are very happy when you are far above, then you can be very happy about that, and something like that it is. It's not more or not less. And that's already something valuable. That's important to have something like that and not to be in a completely deregulated market without benchmarks at all. That's for sure not a good idea.
Matthias, if I may ask you, so let's say under usual conditions, the client comes with, I don't know, housing project. Could you tell after some interviewing that you will need 500 hours for that cumulative, so man hours for your office? Can you factor in all the information you got so at the beginning, like is there some historical data as well?
Yes. What we know is we take our HRE and calculate it like this, and we know if the process in the beginning will be a good one, which we do not know, but if it is the case, we will earn a lot of money in the first 4 phases. And we have more difficulty in the phase 5 when construction planning is. So we know that. But we come through with this. And we know if we go with a fee lower than that, a little is possible, but much is not possible, and we will not do it. So that we know from beginning on. So, but that's what I say, the HRE is for us the reference to discuss.
Okay, maybe an easier question for short intermezzo, then we'll go. What do you think, I commented shortly yesterday when Axel was here. What do you think about teaching fees and professional standards and these issues at university? Money is kind of forbidden topic, or it used to be forbidden topic at the universities, maybe a little bit in Switzerland, Germany. I know about economy, that there are some courses, but we are talking about figures, numbers, not saying that this is very expensive and this is cheap, or this would be good menu for value. So, but should the students hear something about this, about the range, the fees, the systems, the construction cost evaluation, or because again there is a widespread across Europe, but let's say at least 2/3 of EU members there is professional practice experience after the degree. And somehow it was always implied that, okay, you don't need to learn about this at university, but when you come as a practicant in Mr. Pfeiffer's office, then you will learn a little bit how it's done, but you also might not. And, you know, so when you establish yourself in 3 years' time, then who knows? Do you know, so what do you think about this?
Can I?
Yeah, of course.
Well, you were talking about that, and an image comes into my mind. Some years ago, before the COVID, I was at a conference, and it was a small conference, and there were some young architects there. And we talked about fees, and it was about housing and fees, and a girl approached the people that were on the stage and told she needed some guidance because she learned nothing about it at school. And what happened, it's because we were pre-COVID, we had lots of refurbishment going on, so younger architects could leave the university and almost establish them by themselves. And they had no guidance, no fee scales, no nothing. So what happens? They have a problem. They don't know how to calculate their fees. And they are not conscious about all those things that Alex was talking about the energy, the software, etc. So I think you should talk about it at school, yeah.
Anyone else?
It's absolutely necessary.
I could not agree more, obviously, but I want to give another argument for this. In at least our situation in Romania, the vast majority of architectural students are under the false impression that the second you finish university and get your degree, you have to register with a chamber, start your internship, and fast track to the point where you are an architect, full architect, licensed, and so on, and then as a first thing next morning, you start your own practice, if not before that also. And this is not the case. And I think for leaving aside the social pressure, family and everyone else, you're not a full architect until you are self-established, licensed, and so on, which is a very big load of the word that you cannot speak in a microphone. But because you can be a very good architect and a very necessary and indispensable architect in an office without being licensed as a self right of signature, whatever kind of licensing you have in your country. You can be a very valuable asset to your office. The thing is, without teaching this in university, everyone will go down that road without knowing what they're getting into. And my first shock was when we were having a series of conferences, some, I don't know, 8-9 years ago, about internship with students and already very young architects who had their degree. And we asked them, okay, if tomorrow you could open your own office, what would be your expectation to earn in the first few months as a self-employed architect? And the most courageous answer was 500 euros per month. And then we started discussing about, okay, what about the taxes for that money? What about social insurance? What about health insurance? What about accountant? What about energy, software, computers, everything else, car, blah, 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 and so on, safety equipment and everything that you need. And then we ended up with a figure which was a factor of 5, 6 above that. And they were like, okay, then I would be bankrupt or having to go to my parents to get some money. after a few months. And this is the case because we don't teach them that in universities. How would they know that? I mean, there is a handful of people who have the experience, contacts, family members, and so on. But this is just basic business training. It's not something particular pertaining to architects. It's just something that if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to know stuff that nobody teaches you in university, and we have to do that. And you were saying about internships or the professional practice after graduation. Most of the times, the architects who take the newly graduates in see them as the competition of tomorrow. And they don't want to teach them everything, because tomorrow they will be my competitors. This is a problem. This is also a mentality problem of the established architects, and we have to go beyond that. We have to understand that if all my competitors make proper estimates, proper offers, and don't sell themselves too short, too cheap, then for me it will be also easier in the future to get proper payment for my services. And yes, some of them will underbid me at some point, but hey, we don't have to take all the projects that you're bidding for.
Cornel.
I don't know how it is in the universities in Slovakia, but I make seminars for young architects, for beginning architects, how to double-check their calculations, how don't to forget in these calculations about this, and some guidelines about the possibilities how to calculate their fees. So we start, as a chamber, we start with our new authorized architects and make these seminars for them. And I think it's helpful also if they don't got it at the university, that they got it at the start of their career.
I liked what Alex said about it is not only about architects, it's much more. And that means it is not only to become a good architect or entrepreneur architect, but only to be part of a society. You have to understand much about life and something like that. And I think that is one of the problems in the universities, that they always think only about knowledge and not so much about attitude. And attitude is much more important than knowledge, because if you have the right attitude and you are quite good in your head, then you will find the knowledge. But if you do not have the attitude, there's no chance to find the knowledge. And that is a principal problem, not only in architecture, university, but indeed in society. A special thing with the architects is that they are good people and they think maybe too much about the health and the wealth of other people and the society, and they want to make beautiful things and something like that. And so they sometimes forget too much about they have to care for themselves too and for their financial situation. So that's something special. But it's not a question of teaching in the sense, it is not important that they know how much costs this floor or something like that. They will learn later, that's no problem.
Okay, I have also one more question from the audience. So bear with me just a moment. Some colleagues that run larger companies, so during the analysis, they all calculate the fee through several ways: percentage of investment, estimated work hours, euro per square meters, euro per cubic meter, and then compare and find average. Do we need one strict system, or we can mix it? So we already discussed this a little bit. We see from British example, so from Sarah was talking yesterday, it can be flexible and adjusted. Internal company data collection as the basic resource for defining the fee. You are a large office, do you keep these kind of information? internal statistics, but you know what to do with small offices in a way. And let's not forget 75% of European architectural offices are 1 to 2 or single practitioners. I mean, it's a large amount of market. If you would like perhaps to comment.
I mean, to be honest, fees are always something like that. So we do not have real benchmarks, to be honest. Okay, we compare, of course. We compare what we had last time with this client. I myself quite often have clients which I have over years or decades, and then the question of fees is quite clear, because we did it already often and something like that. And that is also the benchmark for new clients. And we say, why should we work for less if we do it like this, successfully over a long time? That's what we have. We compare the last projects.
Okay. Oh, yeah, sure.
Sorry. Yeah. I can add a thing or two on based on the question directly. Yes, of course, you as the Croatian Chamber of Architects can have. Nobody tells you that you can have only one system. You can have 3 systems in parallel. Nobody is restricting that. The question is who is going to put them up, who's going to build them, who's going to construct them. And if you can do that, bravo, very good. It's always good to have 2 or 3 verification tools to double check if you're not wrong. For instance, I myself have based on previous experiences, I always do the first estimate instinctively, you know, like saying, okay, roughly this should be it, and then I run it by the system that I was using before we had this with the hours. Which was basically a derivative from the Hawaii and trying to estimate the construction cost and then a percentage and then so on. So this is my first key of verification. And the second one is, of course, now since we have the system, also the man hours, and then I put the man hours, but then I need to know what my cost is, my actual cost is, because, of course, the fee is something that you are at some point willing to negotiate. But if you go below the actual cost for that project, knowingly or unknowingly, you will have to compensate from another source. May it be another project, or you have to sell something from the office, or you have to bring money from home. That's the only 3. Of course, you can steal or rob a bank or something, but other than that, yes. So you have to you can rely on instinct and on a good sense of what the correct level of fee is if you have enough experience in that. But young offices, inexperienced offices, early in their functioning will need some sort of guidance, some sort of tool to help them check if their instinct is right or not. Otherwise, they will, be very wrong.
If I may connect to that right away, so for both you and Mima, since you have relatively new systems, although developed over some period, what's the feedback from your members, from the market, from, I don't know, public authority? Are you earning more now or less, or like how is the market reacting? And sorry, do public authorities like, you know, cities, agencies, ministries use it? Do they know it? Do they use it for budgeting or commissioning work? Is there some feedback? I know they're both relatively recent, but so far.
Well, as I said before, the ministries and the municipalities use our system when calculating the fees for the projects which derive from the architectural competitions. And there were no complaints, even though it's quite good price. Beside that, among the architects, our colleagues, they say it's too high. And then when we explained them how do you calculate your hourly rate, and as many of you explained before, and then they get aware of what the price really should be, but they're not willing to accept that yet. So we have not only the clients, also the architects are a bit of a
complaining.
Yeah.
Alex, what about you?
Well, since our system only spits out hours, person hours of work, it's not that shocking for anyone, because then they all need to also multiply it by the hourly cost or hourly fee, and most of the offices don't yet have an idea about this. This is why we had to establish that fourth component of the system, the one that allows you to determine internally for you the fee. So after you do that, then you would know if it's correct or not. And for the public authorities, it has not been communicated, but brought to the public attention so much, so broadly, so that we have a consistent feedback on an individual basis, where we have contacts or where architects or offices have entered negotiations with public authorities based on this. The feedback is good, that now they have more of an understanding of a common ground on what is part of the process, what is part of the deal, of the services included, and what not. And they can fall back to the description at any given point in the collaboration, but nobody really is, I mean, for now, because it's quite, as I said, it was published in April this year, nobody really connected it with, or we didn't get the feedback on the actual fees there, because it's something that we have no influence over. It's the architectural office who puts the last number in the equation, and we don't know what it is.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, for example, if, for them to doing public procurement, for procuring project documentation for a school, a hospital, or something, so do you expect that they will use this in terms of scope of service, in terms of sizing the budget, and so on?
We expect them to do that. So the feedback in this respect from a handful of public authorities was that, yes, finally now we can have a better grasp of what kind of effort is behind this work that we are commissioning or intend to commission. And we will figure out what the hourly rate is in our region or in our field of interest. So that was the least of their problems. The major part was to make sure that they have a common understanding, like a dictionary, to speak to the architects about what is in the project, what is not, and of course what kind of effort that implies, because otherwise they would not be able to estimate that. So our expectation is that everybody will be on board with that. Architects are quite happy, obviously, with it, but I think we also need to still have to do some work to make it popular and more accessible. So we'll probably have a recurrent lectures, courses to explain how it works and so on, make architects accustomed to it.
Okay, what I hear from all this discussion is that there's a great focus, and that's good, I think, on scope of works, to describe scope of works. Fees are difficult and something like that, but to have a common understanding in the market about the scope of works, and that's not what I mean to be too detailed with it. For example, with all this BIM stuff, we state with that what we know, and we say in phase 3 we make 1 to 100. That 1 to 100 is stupid for BIM, of course, but everyone knows what he gets. So, and in the preliminary design is 1 to 200. Everyone knows, and so it's fine like that, and the rest will come with the project. But scope of works to have a common understanding. I think that is maybe something which is much easier, and it is the first and necessary step before you come to fees.
But if I may just touch upon that, what about the other engineers? And do you always know what you expect from the colleagues? So, of course, you can stop collaborating with someone if he starts under-delivering. But in terms of standards, you weren't really happy with what Mima showed, and it looked a lot like Austrian drawing norm. I forgot the number, where you have all these signs, colors for materials. So how much standardization in this sort of delivery aspect is possible, and should there be? I actually agree very much with you that it shouldn't be too much.
Yes, we make something I think quite interesting with MEP now, and the technical engineers. For phase 3 in Germany, we want to make them less, not more, but less, because the Hawaii right now is wrong for them and for the collaboration, because they shall end up with calculations, and that leads to the factor that they do not work at all, nearly not at all, until the end of phase 3, and then they calculate in one. And we say, that's not what we need as architects. What we need is a collaboration over the whole phase with you, and not with a precise calculation. We are not interested into that. We only need your space requirements. What are the chefs, what are the ceiling, and what are the plants? That's what we want to know. And it is enough not to calculate it really, but to estimate it. And that even has to do with sustainability. Because if you calculate every chef to the point, it's not sustainable at all, because it fits the project right now, but it will not fit it in 5 years when you start changing. So this kind of scope of work has really to do what attitude do you have to a building and something like that. And to the collaboration between the different disciplines during work. But this, if you see it broader, that means not only with a view on the architecture, but on the whole design team. That is extremely important to do that, but it's also extremely difficult. Difficulties increase, of course. But I think we are on a quite good way on this.
Marko.
Yeah, Marko Dabrovic, what I somehow think the market needs is KPIs, some key performance indicators, because everything is so different between different markets. But what we need is some common goal, something that everybody can understand. What is the hourly rate for the architect? What is the at least something that would, and if I ask you in each market, it would be interesting to understand what is hourly rate for an architect to perform from Germany to Austria and all in between. Can you say it? Is it so difficult or so different from North Germany to South Germany, or depending on the size of the office?
It is extremely difficult. We have rates which come into the contracts for extra work, and they are rather low. They are about, let's say, 80, 90 euros, and for higher ranges than 120 or something like that. But if we have a successful project, we get quite a lot more. So it depends on the project, and that's one of the reasons why we do not like to work for hourly rates.
Slovakia.
Cornel, what would you say is the Slovak average?
Maximum 65, average 45, 50.
Mima, do you have data?
I'm not sure I know, because we don't collect this data. No one wants to give it, so.
Alex, what would you say?
I think we have. I have two answers. The one from the data we collected. We made this this study. I think the first one was published 2014, and the other one 2018. We failed to do it again this year, but the first one was the average, declared average. It's white market only.
Lot of disclaimers. Okay, we understand. Yeah.
Was as low as I think 11 or 12 euros per hour in 2014, and it was well, closer a little bit, I would say, to reality at 18 to 19 euros per hour in 2018. I would say over the last 4 years, it's probably even. If we would do the study now, it would probably be even a little bit higher because it would be closer to reality, because a lot of the black market has come to the surface because of some government interventions in the fiscal facilities for the construction in the sector, and then a lot of the black market has actually come to light. So right now, I would say that it should be on average at about 30-ish, 35 euros per hour. But it has to be differentiated a lot. And I would say that for very highly specialized consultancy services, you cannot go with the same hourly rate that you do for regular everyday designing, or for the turning the BIM into plans that you have to turn in on paper and cut trees to do that, which has then to be lower than the average, in my opinion. So I would say the range should be somewhere between 30 and 70 for these type of services. And I am encouraging architects always to look a bit around them to other professions that they interact more or less on a daily basis with. And in Romania, at least, I'm always asking them to look at what a hairdresser takes and what a car mechanic takes. And it's usually a little bit more than the average that architects declare. So maybe we should not sell ourselves too cheaply.
Carla, what about Portugal?
Yeah, I will give you two different answers, Marco. One as a member of the chamber, and as member of the chamber, I have to tell you, we do not have that data. We are starting to work on that. We've launched a project 1 month ago for collecting data about our profession in Portugal. So I hope that in 1 month or so, I will have some numbers for you. But yesterday in my presentation, I was starting to talk a little bit about an experience I saw on public procurement, where the public procurer tries to give a number of hours for our project and the engineering, etc., and also a value. What happens is the value he established was 65 euros for an hourly rate for the designer. But I also can tell you that the amount of hours that were calculated were not sufficient for the for the project. So what Mimo was saying, measuring the effort, and it is very interesting knowing that the public procurer is interested in their calculators. It's because they are interested in knowing what the effort is. And that is very important, more than, because I can tell you it was 65. I can also tell you that architects were bidding around 40 to 45. But in the end, it means nothing, because the number of hours, the maximum number of hours was probably underrated.
Frank.
We also do not have official data. In my office, I can say it's depending on the project and the team, it's starting from 100 euros to 150. So if you ask me quickly, so I say 120.
Should we say what the survey showed for Croatia, or?
Yes, please.
I don't know. I mean, the last numbers that we had for were 30 euros, was it? Approximately 30 and less. Okay, but then in different stages, like principal or architect in charge and the collaborator. So, but what? 30 or 25, the highest, was it? 23. Okay, exactly. Yeah, and let me remind you here that also that the Architects Council of Europe does the sector study every 2 years, where it looks at the averages, whatever average is, and you know, with all the cum grano salis statistics for the, but it does shows, and then one of the slides I had on my presentation yesterday, it also showed this European situation from 2010 to 2020. Okay. I don't know. Is there anything else you would like?
I would like to answer a question that was addressed yesterday, I think, by Marco. He said at some point that there is something that preoccupies him, as in how to protect against inflation with projects that go long times over stretches where you have huge fluctuations due to crisis or whatever things that happen in the universe around us. And we have put quite some thought into that in Romania as well. And I think the only answer that one can give, given the context, the European context and the regulation or deregulation of the market and so on and so forth, the only thing that you could do is to actually include in contracts provisions, clauses for these kind of situations, and just establish a relevant reference. And I have also like a proof of concept for this idea, because for a larger project that we started talking to contractors in the preliminary phase, basically when we had, well, in the concept phase, so we had a concept, we showed it to them, and okay, look, in about 1 year you'll get the tender documentation for this project, but we want you to know what's coming for you. And it was quite, I think it was 1 month or so after the war in Ukraine started. We had obviously the fluctuations from the COVID roller coaster, and most of the major contractors from the country that were approached said, yes, we have no problem to sign a contract, even if we know that the building process will take 2 years and there will be huge fluctuations, as long as we have a provision in the contract that both parties agree to bind themselves to a reference point, which is something that we agree upon. It may be some stock exchange or whatever international, be it the British one, another international place where you can get, I don't know, the price for steel, the price for copper, the price for whatever. And if we have fluctuations more than plus or minus 5%, 10%, whatever, we sit together at the table and discuss who is going to absorb that. And that's the only way that we have ever found that is actually agreeable to both parts, because nobody can say if it's going to go up or down. We expect it to go up all the time, but sometimes it goes down. So I think that's the thing that one should plan for, and at least approach it transparently and openly with the client in the beginning. Of course, it doesn't work for contracts signed 5 years ago, but from now on, at least we should be able to do that.
I mean, this is something that we expect from the chambers, these type of work to be done, because it's difficult to persuade clients they have to pay more from a given moment. So it's something that the chambers should fight for their members and propose. I think I like the British, they had an index of consumption, which is really relevant, because all our employees, they have to pay their milk and go to buy the fruits. So all of this relates to their salary. So if this is increased, their salaries should increase, and then the work by architects should decrease. Because we had euro before, now our currency is linked to euro, so it's we are going to be part of euro from next year, and there is no anymore this relation to euro, because euro is fixed, euro is in inflation, so you need something else. So I think
Swiss franc.
Yeah. We had this. Oh, this was. Don't go with this joke.
Ounce of gold.
No, I think just one more thing. I think that this expectation is only feasible if your clients also trust in the chamber, because the chamber is not an authority for the client. It's sometimes not even an authority for the architects, in some respects. So if the chamber has such a good standing and can be like can vouch for a statement which makes it stronger in your argument with the discussion with the client, then yes, it makes sense. Other than that, I think it all boils down to what you can negotiate in the contract with your client.
We have to bring it to a close, but I got two questions from the audience through the cell phone, and since we didn't have that many, I really want to at least quickly, maybe if you can equally quickly reply. Can you please comment the fact that in Croatia at least, or probably some professions have legally determined fees for their service, while it's not possible for architects? But this is the situation that we basically we are just speaking just about guidelines or indicative fees systems and so on. And also to Mr. Pfeiffer, given the fact that your fees are now outside of the law, but they are not basically. They were just given. The Hawaii is not outside of the. It's still legal, but it's not binding.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Binding would be illegal.
Yeah, binding would be illegal. Okay, so the other question, is it possible to create some kind of register of working hours, maybe even a European one, if it takes the same time to design a kindergarten in Germany and in Austria? Specific building types filled in by all architects, even famous ones, it would be easier to calculate our fee and also to understand how much time is needed to have good or even great architecture. The chambers could easily gather this data by its members. I don't know, do you? Any comments?
I think we've addressed most of that topics before, but the first question, I would also like to know it, the answer, because I feel the same. I watch everyone with their models, so I would also like to know how can I do this in my country. So no real answer from me.
Your model has antiquarian value.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you, dear speakers. Thank you for being us with these 2 days. Thank you for your valuable, very nice presentation, valuable inputs for today's discussion. Thanks to Axel and Sarah and Manos, if they are by any chance watching us. Thank you all of our audience who was watching us over the live stream, and thank all the people in the chamber and from the technical department who helped us organize and deliver this. Thank you all and see you next time.